So as we said, we are going to be talking about Open Enrollment, version 11 benefits, Open Enrollment. This kind of came about because we've been getting a lot of questions. Should I move to benefits version 11? Benefits version 10 and S3 works perfectly well. I'm moving to global HR. Do I need to move benefits and absence? So a lot of the differentiators happen in open enrollment. So we wanted to be able to show you, especially we're going into open enrollment season right now. So it's a nice time to kind of go over, what kind of some of the differences are between what you've got today in S3 and what version 11 offers out of the box, as well as a semi tutorial of what the setup looks like, the ease of use to get it ready to roll. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. RPI Consultants, you probably already have known us, seen us, been to a couple of our webinars. If you haven't, we're based out of Baltimore. We are an alliance partner, Cloud Suite partner with Infor, and we've got consultants all over the country.
So today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about setting up open enrollment, what's involved. We'll look at the design that employees will see. What do they actually see when they go to the enrollment? Talk a little bit about HR management of the open enrollment process. What kind of reporting can you do? What kind of information do you get to see? How do you pull information out? And then I still chuckle when I talk about vendor interfaces. We'll talk about what comes out of the box from Global HR for your vendor interfaces. So let's talk about a couple things on setup. I'd like to say it's easy to set up, but easy is probably, that's up to anybody's interpretation. What you see in the back slide there is instructions. You see current benefits, dependents, beneficiaries. You can set up detailed instructions, much like you do on all the other forms in GHR. You can actually use that rich text editor to set up a lot of information in there. You can put links in there, hot links into your intranet. If you've got a benefits comparison tool, you can link to that in that instructions piece. You can create electronic signatures when you get down to the review submit, so that employees type in their signature, and that's system time stamped, and it shows up in the audit log. The other thing you can do is that last thing, the summary. The employees will see a summary of their costs when they submit their elections. Part of the setup is you basically create one setup for all your employee groups. You can customize those rates for the employee groups based on what they see and who's eligible for each of those groups. But it's a much easier setup there.
Yeah, so kind of my role in this presentation is from the S3 user. I had not seen open enrollment. Kevin's been working on this for a couple of clients, and while I've seen benefits and worked in benefits briefly over the last, or not briefly, but worked in the version 11 benefits, I hadn't gotten through an open enrollment or brought that live. So a lot of the questions I've got are, I think, probably questions you'll have. And then, kind of want to talk about what it is in S3. So when Kevin was talking about the detailed instructions there, in S3, in order to be able to do that, you do have to go to an XML file that's sitting on your web directory over in the XBNet file, and you can go in, and generally it's somebody in your IT staff that has to go into that XML code or the messages and change what that instruction says. And it's very, it is what it is. It's words. You can't really put links in there. If you want to do links, you create bookmarks for it. So it's a little bit more heavier, I think, to try and push out all the content you want. So to be able to have just a section for instructions where a user can go in there and define what they want it to say, how they want it to look, link out to what they need, I think is a huge benefit. So you're not tying up those IT resources to get your enrollment ready to go.
Cool. Another piece of setup is the group setups. And I know this is considerably different than S3. In S3, you would set up like BN underscore something as a custom group, and that's what your benefits are going to use. In Global HR, you still set up a custom group but the system can use that group for anything. Like in this case, it's called full-time benefits. If you want to use that group for anything non-benefit related, you can do that as well. So you set up the custom group, then it's assigned to a work assignment business class, and then I'll come back to the condition. But down here you see HCM group benefits. That's just one of the subjects that can use that custom group. You do have to set that up or the benefits functionality won't see that custom group. So you do have to link it to that group benefits. But you can also link that custom group to a lot of different things. You can call it anything you want. Best practice is if you have a custom group called full-time benefits, that's your benefit group is full-time benefits.
So you're not going to be using like one generic full-time active. Like in the S3 days, you would create a full-time active, and sometimes you would use it for absence management, and sometimes you'd use it for HR reporting, and you'd be able to access it through employee groups, and you can use it for anything.
You can do that here too.
You can do that here.
You just need to make sure that you tie it to a subject. So in this case,
but if I
HCM
want to
group
keep
benefits.
it clean, would I want to just basically create a custom group for each area of the system?
Probably to keep it clean, yeah.
Okay.
A thing that I like a lot better in Global HR versus S3 is the actual logic around the employee groups. So in Global HR, they call it condition, and that's the condition here. And instead of having to go back and forth from screen to screen, if you had like 5 or 6 different conditions in your employee group, sometimes you'd have to page down to see those. Here you get to see it all in one
And you'd have
spot.
to remember to put all of the ones together are ones or A's, and the logic to create the employee groups and bring all criteria in was a little clunky.
There are a couple of drawbacks to this. In this case, it's pulling active and full-time, so it's pretty simple. All you can see is this. And so if you have a long one that's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, my recommendation, what I've been doing is just pulling that out into a Word document so I can edit it, then I'll paste it back in so I can see the whole thing at once. It's just easier for me to do that. And then the second thing is in S3, you could nest those those benefit groups. So you could say I want full-time benefits, but not part-time, less than 30-hour group. You can't. That's the one drawback that I found here is you can't nest those benefit groups. So you end up with a much longer condition as opposed
and
to.
I see that as a good thing,
Yeah.
because whenever you have some of those nested groups, it takes you forever to go down that rabbit hole to figure out what's exactly inside, what the first criteria was that you're referencing. So a lot of times people will say, I don't have a group here that meets qualifications or meets criteria that I need, so I'm just going to build another one. And then 10 years later, you've got 999 employee groups, and you've got no more room to add any more, which I guess you do now in version 10. But I think this is a way that you can easily keep it a little cleaner, because people can go in there and be able to see all of the logic. And what Kevin did cut out here, we wanted to show it pretty big, but there is a little builder button. So if you don't have to know exactly how to build or write the logic.
And if we could get the whole screen on here, underneath the builder button is another button that says preview. If you've built this, by the way, the builder builds it in the Lawson language, so you don't even have to know that. You just have to know what fields you want. And as long as it's done correctly, you'll get a button that says preview. You click on the button, and it'll list out all the resources that are in that custom group. So it's very easy to check immediately whether or not you've pulled the right people.
So that's like creating the HR 55.3 and then running the HR 155 for whatever group this is, and then being able to make sure all the resources are in there.
Yep, but it pops up right on the screen.
So it's saving you a lot of time.
And so the ability to build groups is really, really good.
Do we have the right presentation here and all that? We're good, right?
Yeah.
Good. But I spent a fair amount of time on the groups because that's important, because that's what drives all the rate structure. It drives the eligibility and the benefit groups, and it drives the employee, the enrollment rules. So getting those groups accurate is really important. So there's basically, after you've got the setup, there's 2 steps to get going. One is creating eligibility. And so you create the eligibility for the employees, and you do it by benefit type, benefit plan, or benefit group. The benefit type is like your defined contribution, your health. Benefit plan is the actual plan name. You can do one or the other. You can't pick both. So you have to either do types or plans. You can do all your types at once and run the entire eligibility. You can pick and choose if you want to do health plan eligibility first. And then that benefit group, you can select a specific benefit group to run it for, or you can run it for the entire organization if you leave that blank. And then Melissa pointed out the ACA.
Yeah, I saw that create the ACA offer. So if you were in the earlier presentation, it's not going to be, a lot of stuff that I came up with was really because it's the first time I've seen it. So talk to me a little bit about that, because I know ACA is a module that's been built into both V10 and V11. So it starts all the way out at the eligibility.
It starts all the way back at the plan level.
Okay.
And so when you set up your health insurance plans, you're going to pick which plan is your primary plan, which is your default plan. You can pick if you've got a safe harbor plan. All that ACA functionality gets set up at the benefit plan level, and it comes all the way through the entire, it's not a bolt-on, it's built into the benefits functionality. And even during open enrollment, you can have it you can click there to create your ACA offers. We've got a whole other bunch of information we can share on how the ACA functionality works in the global HR benefits. That would be a whole other presentation pretty much, but suffice it to say, it's all in there.
Presentation on that.
Yeah. So we can do that too. So after you've done your eligibility, you create the enrollments, and this is what's actually going to populate the employees to let them actually make their elections. So up in the upper corner, you see mass enrollment, and that's the process that makes the enrollment available. You can also create individual enrollments. If you want to do that, we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But the mass enrollment, you pick all enrollment rules, we'll run it, that box for all enrollment rules will basically create the enrollment for your entire organization. You don't have to select anything else, just make sure your enrollment period is correct. And that'll populate what we're going to see in a little bit here.
Okay. And so, one of the things I think about with mass enrollment is what about mid-year? So I'm implementing version 11, and I don't want to wait till 1/1/2018 to go live, or if I'm doing it next year, I don't want to wait till 1/1/2019 to go live. I want to go live for open enrollment at 10/1/2018, but I still have all of my 2017 benefits that are being maintained. What do I do with those? Can I go live mid-year?
That's a loaded question. You can go live. There's not a whole lot of delivered functionality for conversions of benefits. We're working on a selfish plug. We're working on a conversion program to accommodate that. But right now, the best way to do it is at an open enrollment period where employees can go actually enroll themselves.
So they stay on the V10 for this plan year.
Yeah,
that's going to be. The best way would be a 1/1 cutover.
Yep.
Okay.
So managing open enrollments, as I alluded to earlier, the creating enrollments or the mass enrollment, you see a bunch of bars down here: draft, started, submitted, submit pending. When you create the open enrollment or create the mass enrollment, it moves all the employees that are eligible for those programs into that draft status. And that's how you'll know you've got everybody set up properly. As they start their enrollment, they'll move to the next bar over to started, for example. One thing that's interesting is that inactive status bar. It's empty in this example, but inactive status is, say you had somebody that was eligible to enroll and left the organization. Okay. What this will do is there's a button up there for reevaluate eligibility, which you can do every couple of weeks. If you reevaluate eligibility, I can't say that at the end of the day, and somebody has dropped off of the eligibility, they'll move over into that inactive status.
That's super cool, because before you had to, or I would create employee groups that would try and capture those people mid-enrollment or mid-open enrollment, because we'd have to do something manually with them. We'd have to remember to pull them out right after the enrollments are done, run all of the reports of who's changed positions, who's terminated, new hires, and figure out what to do with them. So knowing that there's some automation in there that again, it's more efficient than what you have in the S3.
Yeah. And so that's one thing. We don't have the ability to demo this right now, but if you click on each one of those bars, or just highlight, if you hover your mouse over the top of that bar, it'll tell you how many people are in each of those. And if you double click the bar, it will open a report that shows every person's name, where, and
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as a benefits admin, it's 2 days from enrollment close. I see, big group here in the submit or in the submit pending maybe, or not even started. And I can now say, all these people haven't, can I notify them? Can I be like, hey, guys.
You're jumping ahead. We'll talk about that. There is, you see that mass send email. We'll talk about that on another slide here.
So that is nice for your benefits admin, though, to be able to have that overview into, today's world. You have to use the BS 31 or even run a BS 531 in report mode, and then run another report of everybody that's eligible, and then do a VLOOKUP and see who falls out, and then figure out how to notify them. There's like a lot that, or you just notify everybody who, whether or not they care.
And in a couple of slides, we'll show you exactly how to do it.
So I do have a question, I think, that relates to this slide, and then a leading one. Can several people have access to this enrollment detail?
Yes. This is what you're seeing in the presentation is the benefit_administrator role, just the generic delivered benefit administrator security role. You can obviously create a different security role, which would allow different folks in the HR benefits function to see only the open enrollment related material, or you can assign that role to anybody you'd like. But it does have to be associated with that benefit administrator role to have access to this whole group of slides.
Cool. I'm going to ask one more here, and then we'll keep going, because I think it relates to this as well. Can employees start their enrollment, save it, and come back later?
Absolutely. So I start my enrollment. I go through my medical plan, dental plan. I'm not sure what my wife wants me to do. I just close it. And I've moved from this draft into the started. And next time I come back in, whatever I was doing will be right there. So that's what that started means. It means I've doing something, but I haven't.
So it's not going to wipe it out. Like again, in S3 days, if you don't finish it, you pretty much lose everything, and you have to start from beginning. So
nope, it sits exactly where you left off.
That's cool. And then you can go back, and I know we'll see the
I'll show
employee
you
view.
some of it, yeah.
So yeah, I'm figuring whatever they might. It's jumping ahead, but it's what
the surprises that lay ahead.
Yes.
I want to know all of it now. Tell me now.
So we saw the bar chart, which showed the different statuses. This is just, by the way, that last slide is delivered functionality. This slide also is delivered functionality. So some people like to see bars, some people like to see pie charts, some people like to see lists. All these types of summaries are delivered out of the box in GHR, and literally we've done nothing to this other than just click on the tabs. So some of the reporting that you see, this is benefits reporting by resource, and arguably this is not a huge database full of information, but if you do the reporting by resource, this is delivered report. This will show you down the left side all of your entire list of resources, and you'll see what they've elected. So in this case, we've got the dependents that are shown up here. And so you can see you've got the spouse with what looks to be the spouse. You've got dental and health, and you see that start date 9/1/2017. So that's the future dated open enrollment record. You see the dental for the child there, it looks to be. You see the start date 9/1/2017. You also see the end date. So populated out there is the age, the ending age date where the plan setup says they're terminating at a certain age. And then you see dependent, sex, and birth date. You can also report by benefit plan. And so this is not open enrollment specific, but what you have is the plans down the left side and everybody enrolled in that plan in the meat of the data. And what we've done is circled the start date to show you that it's got one open enrollment record in there for 9/1. It's also got somebody that's already enrolled in the plan on January 1st. And again, it shows if they, this is their dependent benefit, but you could set it up to show more. And a lot of folks want to know, how do you pull out dependent reports? just like everywhere in GHR, the little chevrons on the upper right, if you click on that, you can create a report and make changes to that report, or you can export it to CSV and you've got that full report sitting out there. And again, here is another way to view open enrollment. You can view all employee details. You can, and this is delivered process to, I think we talked a little bit about reevaluating eligibility.
Yeah.
But in this case, you've got open enrollment, you've got their name, who they are, and you've got what status they are. So say an employee calls and says, well, geez, I think I submitted my benefits, but I don't really know, and I don't remember my login. As an administrator, you can come right out, this is delivered, click on that All Enrollments tab under Open Enrollment, and you've got a full list of every employee that's in the open enrollment process and where they sit. And again, with GHR reporting, you can create a report from this screen. So the other thing that's interesting is if you've got, say your VP of HR wants to know how many people do we have that haven't submitted their benefits yet or haven't even done anything, and where are they?
Yeah.
You can take this report, use the drop-down chevron, create a report out of it, and then just like all the rest of the GHR reporting, you could add fields of HR organization, location, and suddenly you've got a pretty, and that probably take about 5 minutes. You'd have a report of who and where and what status they're in.
Cool. So I just noticed this finalize button here. What happens if you finalize and there are people who aren't quite, maybe in draft mode or...
You will lock them out.
Oh, okay.
So you
Terminated forever.
So you see the finalize button there in the kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
That one allows you to finalize individuals, but if you look along the top in the blue menu bar, you've got the mass finalize. So you
Okay.
can select everybody in submitted mode and finalize that, or you can select everybody in draft mode and finalize those.
Okay.
If you're mean.
So this is, well, yeah, so this is somebody that's like, I think I submitted it.
Yeah.
Is it ready? Did I do everything I needed to? And you can look, and if it's submitted, you can say, yes, I got it, and then you could finalize it for them
Yep.
as an HR or
You
benefits
could.
administrator.
Yep.
Okay.
And this was a question that you had a little earlier is, what do you need, how can you communicate to employees? I think this is one of the more powerful pieces of the software. You can email specific statuses. You can email, and by that I mean if you've got everybody in draft status that you want to make sure you send an email to them and say, hey, don't forget to, don't forget to do
Finish
your enrollments.
Yeah.
You can set this up to send an email template, which you can build at any time, and you can send along some kind of attachment if you want to. The beauty of this is you see the schedule button. You can create these reminders well before open enrollment is over, and you can set it up that if you know open enrollment is November 1 to November 15, you can schedule it for November 10th, and it's going to send to everybody that's in the draft status at that time.
Oh, cool.
Or anybody that's in the submitted, you could send another one that says, hey, everybody, please finalize your elections.
Okay.
And with the email templates, you can, it's the same as the regular email templates. You can add in specific resource names. Managers can get copied on it. Whatever the email template says will go. Enrolling Individuals Manual. A couple things to talk about on this slide. First, we'll talk about enrolling individuals. So say you've got somebody that was on vacation all 3 weeks of open enrollment and forgets about it, sees their email and calls in and says, hey, I can't get to I'm in Switzerland or I'm on K-12.
Yeah.
Can you enroll me? As a benefits administrator, you can actually enroll that person individually. Or if you've got a group of executives that don't want to do it themselves, you can do that for them as well. I want to point out what you're seeing here versus what you're going to see in the next couple screens. This is the rich client version of the enrollment screen. And you see across the top, you see buttons that talk about the instructions or dependents, beneficiaries, enrollment information. That's going to be similar to what the WebUI looks like. The difference is the rich client's across the top. The WebUI is across the left side or down the left side. But it'll look very similar from the layout.
So this is the one that if I were to stop right now and I'm not finalized, I stop in beneficiaries. when I log back in, green will be on beneficiaries and it'll be right. I can continue to
It'll
go
probably come
through.
back in with instructions and you have to click through it again, but
Okay.
if you typed in one beneficiary but not the other one, that first one will still be there.
Okay.
So this is a little bit different look than what the employees are going to see on the web UI.
Okay. Oh, that's right. This is what the admin would see.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing to point out is, as we talked about earlier, you can set up one enrollment event, but it's based on what the individuals in each enrollment group and what the rules say for each group. This particular person has health, dental, and retirement. There's no life insurance election up there. That's because this person is not eligible for life insurance. And so it just doesn't show for them.
Okay. Okay.
Because what we'll see in a couple other screens is you'll see, this is all the same demo system, but you'll see a summary that has life insurance on it, and that person would have been eligible for life insurance.
So maybe if I need an evidence of insurability and that's not in yet, I won't be eligible for it, so I won't see it. Or, and I know we'll talk about evidence of insurability a little bit later, but
no, you'll be eligible for life insurance, and you can make whatever election you want, but it's gonna stop. Say you elect $100,000 and you're eligible for 50.
Right.
It's gonna stop you at 50 and say 50 needs.
right. I just was thinking of why possibly life insurance might not show up here. What it might be waiting, or it's just something I'm not eligible for.
It's just something
a
they're not
plan
eligible
that,
for.
Yeah, maybe I'm like a contractor or something.
Yeah, or maybe you're part-time, so you don't get supplemental insurance.
Okay.
But you would get health, dental, and retirement.
Okay.
I just don't remember what the eligibility rules are on these plans.
Yeah, it's okay.
So what does the WebUI employee look like? As I referenced earlier, we're in the instructions tab right here. The tabs are down the left this side, and then previous and next buttons are on the bottom right. All I've typed in there is instructions for open enrollment for webinar. That for webinar is, you can have that a link. And as we said, that rich text editor, you can make this look
A lot nicer than
a lot nicer than it
'cause
looks.
It looks pretty
You can
boring.
change the size of the text. You can change the color of the text. You can embed links into this.
So if I want somebody to know something, I can bold it and make it red and flash and.
I don't know about Flash,
Okay.
but yeah,
Yeah.
you can definitely do that.
Because
And-
these are all things that in S3 we'd have to do customizations to the XML file again. Have to put some HTML tags around there that say turn this one red and make this bold, and again everything that we put in has to be maintained. Anytime there's an update, we have to go out there and overlay those changes to those files back over the lost and delivered ones or import delivered.
So I would probably guarantee that whoever the benefits person is responsible for this has no programming knowledge whatsoever, can make this say whatever they want it to say, make it
Nice.
look pretty presentable to employees. So again, this is just a generic view of it. We've done no modifications to this at all. So what do they get when they actually start getting into this? First and foremost, you see a bunch of green checks down the left. So I've obviously gone to the instructions. I've clicked next. I moved to current benefits, and then I jumped down to enrollment information. Probably clicked next, went through that. So as soon as I've seen one of these tabs, it goes green, and if I've done everything correct, it'll stay green. If I do something that needs, like if I select employee plus spouse on the medical plan, but I fail to add a spouse, this enrollment would not show up as green when I try to leave it. It'll show up as, in that case, red,
Okay.
because the system is smart enough to not let you pick dependent coverage and not have a dependent.
That is another customization that we do in S3 to say, if employee plus spouse is chosen, ensure there's a spouse. Or if there's 3 dependents and they choose employee plus child, well, in this case it wouldn't let you know, but kind of opposite, I pick employee plus family, but I don't have any family set up.
Yep, it won't
it's not
let
going
you-
to charge me that big deduction for when I'm only covering.
Yeah,
and we had to eye that before.
Yeah, what will happen here is if I pick family coverage and I have it set up to have at least 2 dependents and I only pick 1 dependent, it'll let me move through the enrollment screens,
Okay.
but it will not let me submit it.
Oh, so then it'll say, hey, go back and pick
there'll be
employee plus child.
there'll
or
be a
employee
red
plus
thing here, and
spouse.
when I come down to the review and submit,
Wow.
it'll tell me I have an error. You must select a spouse. It'll tell you roughly what that error is too.
That is really nice because, like I said, you have to eye that right now and hope that everybody selected the correct thing and they're not having deductions for benefits that they're not using, or vice versa, they're paying for too much.
It's even smarter than that sometimes. If you pick beneficiaries for a life insurance plan and you pick 0 beneficiaries, so you pick a life insurance plan but you don't pick beneficiaries, you're going to get a yellow indicator, but it won't stop you. It's not going to tell you can't.
You must put those in.
It does, it'll let you go without the beneficiaries. But if you pick one beneficiary and make it 75%, it'll stop you because the beneficiaries don't add up to 100.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. I circled this down arrow, the little drop box, because in the enrollments, all you're seeing right here is just the health plan. But as you click through next, you're going to have health, dental, all the other plans popping up down below that as well. So I think that that's going to be a good way to do that. The employee summary. $2.
Sorry, we laugh a lot. You know how we like to do these fun themes to this, and Kevin didn't put a theme too. He put some mountains and stuff, and I'm like, man, you're ski patrol. We need and this is better off dead. I mean, sometimes you are better off dead than healthcare today, but so let's put this, and you can't have a better off dead theme without this kid.
Yeah. Like, I remember having a switchblade comb as a kid. Sorry, we digress a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
But again, so back to the slide, you see the employee view. Obviously now I've been through the instructions, the current benefits, dependents we've been through. So you see all the red checks. We did not actually make any elections in this particular one, so the costs are 0. But here again, in this particular person.
Again, the costs are $2.
Costs are $2.
Yeah.
Cash. But you see there were health plan, dental plan, life insurance, and retirement. So there are life insurance built in this groups, but there's just not, if you're not eligible for that plan, you can't make an election for it.
Okay. So I got a couple of questions. Yeah. One is it smart about, for example, if you are in a high deductible plan, then it lets you choose an HSA, but if you're not, it skips that entirely.
We'll talk about that. I actually have a slide that talks about that.
And then another question that I have here is, are there plan comparison tools to help employees make decisions between plans?
There are not comparison tools built into Global HR, but in that instructions section on the top, you could embed a link out. If you've got a plan comparison tool on your intranet, you can most definitely link to that plan comparison tool in the instructions and go out into that so employees can use it and come back in and make their elections. And then... Okay.
And you can link out to all of your summary plan descriptions, and sometimes in your benefits handbook, a lot of organizations will do that summary, that plan comparison on a page or two, so you can always...
You can also embed a link to your health insurance plan provider's website as well if you wanted to do that.
One more question, I'll let you guys keep going here just to get a couple out. Can you add a link to a vendor website to complete an electronic EOI?
You can. The quick answer is yes. You could click out to a vendor's website for EOI. You probably want to spend some time figuring out how that EOI process is going to work between the vendor having some of that data and some of it being sitting inside of your GHR system, but yes, you can.
Some sort of confirmation back through IPA or something.
Yeah. So you've gone through enrollment. The employees have made their elections. They're finalized. How does it actually get updated? There's a delivered process called resource update.
Such a change, because we're so used to like BN 100 and the BN 530, BS 531 and 532, and a series of jobs and a series of forms, all the BS screens for the setup. So it's like this massive shift here that we have to have to know where to go to do some of these updates and some of these screens.
Yeah, and so the benefit update, you could run this whenever you want. You can run it one time at the end of open enrollment. You can schedule it to run every week if you want to do that. But you can see and you can schedule it, you can basically set it up to run by different benefit plans, by benefit types.
So if I run it weekly, does that close my employee out? So if I put in I might have hit my mic. If I put in my benefits first week of enrollment, and then you ran this update for everybody who's submitted, and then I said, you know what, my husband decided he got his enrollment package and dental's cheaper for him, so I want to take dental away for both of us. Can I go back in if you've already run?
You would probably need to contact benefits
Okay.
to recreate that eligibility for you.
Okay, so then generally maybe you just would suggest best practice that they wait
For
till
open
the end of the
enrollment, I would
enrollment.
probably wait.
Yeah.
This is also, you see at the bottom, you see change rules, you see termination rules. This is a similar process that runs for the ongoing benefits updates as well.
Okay. So new hire.
Think of BN100. This is
Yeah,
kind of
so
what
your
this
new
is.
hire and then any kind of life event enrollments that you
Yep.
get, those are all
Yep.
managed by this as well. Okay.
And I do have a slide about evidence of insurability.
Yeah, I mean, and we put that over on my side only because last year we did a benefits, v11 benefits comparison presentation. And this was one of the things I really, really liked because this is somewhere that we also customize heavily whenever I've done any ESS open enrollment projects, because you can't just put open enrollment out there and expect HR admins to go figure out who's selected anything that's above a guaranteed amount, and if they have, do they need EOI? Do you already have an EOI for them from last year? And whatever it may be. So I thought this was a really cool piece that, you know, this is in the benefits plan setup, or the benefits setup, that you're able to say, okay, we've got a new plan here, and this plan says if people enroll within the first 30 days or 60 days of this new plan going live, then they don't need EOI. They can go in and select however much they need. So you can set up that number of days that is. You're also able to, you know, show any kind of late entrant message. So, you know, the largest amount of guaranteed amount of coverage for the eligible employee can elect without submitting any evidence of insurability. So, you know, they are late into this, and we're only allowing you to select, you know, 2 times your salary without EOI. And if there's anything else outside of that, it will pend until, you know, it goes into a submit pending status until that EOI is returned. And if it's not, then it'll just, as Kevin was talking about earlier, it will only deduct, or, you know, the deduction will only be that of the guaranteed amount. Logic that we constantly had to put in through IPA on the S3 side in order to manage all of that. I don't know, let's see, you can also do maxes for multiples of your salary. So, you know, sometimes you could set maxes, but some of your higher paid employees you wouldn't want to put that amount, that variable on them, because it goes well above the max that's allowed by the insurance company. So now by different salaries you can put those maxes. And then the email attachment, it does allow you to attach a document. Sorry, somebody's getting started
Fear
early
30.
over here. Is it 5 o'clock? It's 5 minutes early. So if you want to be able to attach, you know, one of those evidence of insurability forms for your employee to fill out, so they don't have to go straight to the site right afterward and remember where to go to get that EOI filled out. You can make it a lot easier for them by, you know, sending it to them through email if they select multiple that's above the guaranteed amount. So it doesn't go out to everybody, just the people who select that amount in there.
Yeah, and this gets back to the earlier question about how would you interact with your carrier. You could actually, in the email template, have a link out. So you send an email with a link to the carrier's website, and we'd send them right out there.
Yeah.
But again, getting that back in, you'd have to make sure you think through that process a little bit too. We had a question a little bit earlier. I said we had a slide for. This is prerequisite plans. So like a high deductible health plan with an HSA requirement, you can basically tie the two together in this prerequisite plan box here, whereby you can't pick one without the other. So if you want a HSA, you have to have a high deductible health plan first. You can also, you've got a restricted plan here, so if you have a person that picks a health savings account and you want to restrict them from their flexible spending account, you could put the FSA plan in there as well, so they couldn't pick both. So that's delivered functionality, which I think takes some programming.
It takes a lot of programming, and some people will just put them both out there, and then they see that people are selecting HDHP, and then they don't know which one to select, so they select the FSA. And the S3 logic isn't smart enough to say these plans don't match. It goes through, and then you have to figure those errors out on the back end and switch them over and do like a manual enrollment, or you have to do programming that looks at that logic, which again is very...
Studio audience is getting restless.
Yes.
And another point is when you set up the benefit plans, you can tell the system how many plans you can pick. And for example, in the health plan, you can set it that they have to pick a plan, but they can only pick one plan. And so if they pick a high deductible health plan, they cannot pick another health plan as well. So they can't make that error.
Right.
So the system really steers you into where you're going. We'll talk a little bit about delivered exports, and we've got the kind of
side eye and the wink.
the
There's
wink
delivered
there.
exports. Sure, there's
Yeah, so
834s.
the system does deliver a HIPAA 834 export. You would set that up in the basic plan setup. It's delivered standard. There's also a generic resource export file, which will pull data from each plan, which is set up at the plan level as well. Again, the wink comes from most carriers probably have something that they want you to
Specific format.
tweak on that format. It's probably a good base setup or base starter when you start pulling the interfaces out. But my guess is you'll have to tweak that in a few ways.
And yeah, you'll probably want to follow that up, with an IPA that says, let's pull this, let's take this, let's massage it into the format that carrier Blue Cross wants, and then maybe the dental format is another one, and then it'll go sit somewhere on a server to be picked up for an FTP process to that whatever your carrier is. So it's by no means anything that's automated, but it is a start. A start where you can use your IPA to fully automate that functionality. But yeah.
And then one thing this triggers is just generic reporting out of benefits. The reporting is powerful just like it is in GHR. If you've got a screen with a list of information on it, you can create a report on that screen through your Chevron drop-downs again. And if you've got personalized turned on, you can then add fields to that, create whatever kind of report you want out of that data set. It's the same functionality that comes in the standard GHR package as well.
Okay. I think are we ready for some questions?
I think we're ready for some questions.
Great. Well, we got a few here. So this relates back to, I think, the employee side of going through enrollment. Can you force employees to go through each enrollment screen?
You probably could set that up, but the system doesn't come designed to force them screen by screen by screen. The way it's set up is they can bounce between enrollment, back to the instruction page, back to the enrollment view again.
But they're all required.
They're not required.
Okay.
But I think you could probably through some sort of IPA set that up.
Can you include benefits that you don't want the employees to have the ability to change on the current benefits and final confirmation pages?
Like employee paid benefits, like a life insurance.
Yeah, or company paid long-term disability.
Other way around, ones that they don't really, that they get. So you're getting this.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. Company paid life insurance. They get it. They don't have to go in there, and usually you don't put it in their enrollment because they don't have to select it.
Yeah.
But it would show up on their confirmation and deduction.
In the initial, like say if you're just rolling the system out, there's going to be no current benefits in there. But to say if this is your second year of open enrollment, you've got your benefits already in GHR benefits. That tab that says current benefits will show all your current benefits. It'll show the life and LTD plans that you're in. When you go to enroll, that's where Melissa's correct. They won't be there because it's not an enrollment for them, but they will see that.
On the final confirmation page, they'll see that.
Yeah, because a lot of times, and that happens in S3 as well, because it shows deductions, and then it'll show company paid benefits as well, so that way you can kind of see
and actually,
what your total
and
benefit.
I didn't touch on that specifically, but on those summary pages when you set up your open enrollment event, you can say, I want to see by pay period, I want to see by month, I want to see by the annual cost.
Oh, yeah,
I want to
that's
see,
nice.
yeah, I want to see the pre-tax or post-tax. I just want to see my employer deduction. So you can tweak how you want that to show up for the employees based on whatever you
So that
like
makes
to
me
see.
think of a question, and hopefully you can answer this. You might have some more questions, but so I've seen where most, all the benefits except for one are biweekly, but then I've got one that is so 26. They say it's deducted by or divisible by 26, but one of them has to be divisible by 24. And in S3, you're only allowed to choose whether it's semi-monthly or biweekly. You're not allowed to switch them for each plan.
You would see whatever the pay period deduction would be. The system is smart enough, just like S3, to say I want this deduction to come out of one paycheck a month or all the paychecks. But what you see at the end of the day, at the end of that summary page, is pay period, semi-monthly or monthly type things.
We've had to customize it before to say.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to see that,
semi-monthly.
that might be a
Still customized.
customization. Yeah.
But would you? By benefit plan, you could say how it's deducted.
How it'll come out.
Yeah, because that's what we've had to do is kind of change the wording to say bi-weekly, and then on that one it would say semi-monthly, even though
Yeah,
that's
that would-
not what the out of the box.
So that would be a customization
Okay.
in this case.
Or configuration, I guess, because you could probably
Customization is,
Customization.
we don't talk about those.
Yes.
Configuration is a better
Configuration.
word.
First rule of landmark.
Yes.
Next question. If employees are adding dependents, independent proof, in other words, birth certificates, marriage certificate, are needed, can the employee download those documents right into the system?
Yes. They could send them in. Yes and no. I mean, they can send you the attachment. As the benefits person, you're going to have to take that attachment and then look at it again. So it would come back through an email. They can't upload it directly into the system.
And then when you get that attachment, there's places to put attachments in Infor, but there's not necessarily the space to hold thousands of employees' attachments. So at that point, those attachments have to point to somewhere, whether they point to a separate server that's secure or an imaging system. So there's two answers to that kind of question. So it is available. They don't have to walk it to you anymore in HR, and they can attach it, and you might even be able to put. There is that section to attach on the dependents. When you set up your dependents, there's a button to browse out to a document.
I believe there is.
There is.
I'm not seeing it, but I believe you're right. Yeah.
You believe there is, okay. Last question I seem to have so far. Regarding the mass send email for open enrollment, what if not all our employees have emails? Can we send mass messages within the system or only actual emails?
That's a good question. If they don't have an email address at all in that field, it won't go anywhere. Right. But I have a client, for example, who has store employees that may not have email addresses. What we are trying to work on is a way to create a process flow, send it to the inbox for a manager, so that the manager could then deliver that information to the employee. So I think that's the way around that piece. But currently, if there is no email, then obviously the email functionality doesn't work for them.
I think before we finish up, there was one question that I had regarding passive enrollments and active enrollments.
Okay.
So in today's world, S3, I've got to go in there and I have to stop all the benefits for year end, and then if I want it to be a passive enrollment, I need to use this, create a spreadsheet with every benefit that each person has, and ensure that it's got a start date of 1/1/2018, and kind of load all that in. And there's a couple of other things. There's a lot of stuff, and it takes a whole lot of time for me to be able to run a passive enrollment. And that's saying I want my employees to, if they want to go in and change something, they can change it, but if they don't go in at all, they're going to have the same benefits that they had last year. And I know this can't be for day one go live, but say next year, is it easier to run passive enrollment?
Yeah, it's much easier. So inside each benefit plan are rates associated with different benefit groups underneath those plans. And by the way, that's one thing I didn't touch on. If you have wellness programs with different triggers for different incentive plans, all you need is one benefit group for the eligibility. Then you can create benefit groups that have different rates in it. And those are just along with the benefit plan. But to answer your question, is if you are only changing rates, you just need to go into those rate tables, update the rates with a new effective year or an effective date, and
so that
it
benefit
goes right along.
plan will stay on my
Yeah.
employee.
Yep.
As long as
You don't have
stop
to
dates.
end.
You
Yeah,
don't have to
can't-
stop it every
yeah,
year.
You can, but you don't have to. So you don't have to have an end date on the benefit plan.
Okay.
If the benefit plan stays identical, you run it right through. The rates change on January 1. You update the rate tables, and the rate tables will
Nice.
take effect on that date.
Nice. Yeah, it saves so much time.
Yeah, so that is a good piece.
Okay.
Rocketing into the
Yeah.
new
So yeah, I've
world.
already seen, as a previous person that runs benefits and a person currently who does benefits for a lot of people, I'm already seeing like a lot of efficiencies and saving in coding, saving in time, in setting up open enrollment in V11 versus S3,
Yeah.
V10 right now. So hopefully that helps you guys if you're trying to make that decision whether to jump to V11 and implement benefits when you do go to GHR, or maybe that'll drive you to go a little quicker if you want to start doing open enrollment out of Infor Lawson.